Hi my darlings, I'm Sophie Darling and welcome back to the channel. Today we are reacting to episode 15 of series 1 of Apothecary Diaries. We got introduced to Lolan and I have really sus vibes about her and I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's just she's very cagey and she's very kind of withdrawn, but it could just be because she's having to adjust to this life. Maybe I'm being too harsh, maybe I'm being too skeptical, but it will be interesting to know more about her and whether she becomes a character that I go from being sus of to liking. I'm not sure. It's just she doesn't seem overly happy to be here. She seems very dismissive of the other concubines. She seems very adverse to her position. Like she doesn't treat the crown associated with the pure consort with respect. She just kind of throws it down into the chest as if it's nothing. So yeah, I am curious about her, but at the same time, sus of her. So until we learn more, I don't know how to feel about her. And then there's also, is it Lakin? I don't know what his connection in all of this is because he keeps showing up. So obviously there is a connection somewhere. And he was looking at MAOMAO in episode 13 and he knew about the brothel and recognized it. So he has a connection somehow to the Pleasure District. Maybe he knew MAOMAO's dad. I don't know. But I think his name's Lakin, or am I wrong? I could be wrong. There's so many different names. It's hard to keep track of everybody, but I know the core characters, but Lakin, I think it's Lakin. Is it Lakin? I don't want to Google just in case it comes up with like spoilers or anything. So I'm just going to presume it's Lakin until we get further in. I'm pulling it from the recesses of my mind and hoping that that's the actual name. But without further ado, we're going to get into episode 15.
李白のやつ、お手柄だったな。あいつが解決するとは意外だった。それが
He didn't! It was MAOMAO!
事件解決に一役買ったらしい。下女？神使様の部屋付きの下女だって。神使様といえば、この前六召喚の妓女を見受けしたんだろう。なんでも知的で冷たい目つきの美女だとか。
MAOMAO. He keeps showing up. Yeah, Lakin. Okay. He keeps showing up in connection to MAOMAO being mentioned. So what is the dynamic between them?
古い事件の資料ですね。10年前の消化でフグのナマスに当たって食中毒が起きたと。フグの毒？ピリピリしたしびれがいいんだ。
Are they trying to see if it was like malicious?
今度その手の料理屋に連れて行きますから。
She's like, you're my favorite person ever.
どうしたのですか？
これとよく似た事件が最近起こったということで、元同僚に相談を。
It's him again!
官僚がフグのナマスを食べて昏睡状態に陥っているの。
それは私が聞いてもよろしい話でしょうか？
問題ありません。シャオマオは自分の立場をわきまえています。
You trust her. Do it secretly.
毒の出てくるこの話を途中で切ってもいいのですか？
He knows. He knows her too well.
フグの身ですか？毒が多いのは肝などの内臓ですが。
ええ、皮と身です。
種類や環境によっては身に毒がある場合も。
I don't know anything about pufferfish poison, to be fair.
料理人はフグを調理に使っていないと言い張っているのです。
But it was pufferfish poison?
面白そうな話ですね。
共通点はそれだけでは。
So is somebody slipping
倒れた二人。今回の役人と前回の商人は
pufferfish into the dish?
珍味を好んでいました。
Okay, strange.
厨房のゴミから内臓や皮がすべて発見されたことから、肝は食べていないと判断されました。
Could it be like a chemical reaction between one fish and the pufferfish? Like in the belly, that when it mixes, it may enter the bloodstream? I don't know. I don't really know much about fish and poison, to be honest.
別の魚を使ったという話も、残りカスが見つかっていて矛盾はない。
何の話をしてたんだ？さすがにその顔は俺も傷つく。
The horror on her face.
面白い話なら人は耳を傾けるもので
Is
すから。
he getting her to
Oi,
be
ちょっと待って。
a court
お前、
lady
俺
so
の
she
話
can
は
do
よく途中
little
で。
investigations?
遅くなりましたので
Is that what
帰らせ
he
ていただ
wanted
きます。
her to be
お
a
い、
court
まだ
lady
話は終
for?
わってない。
あらあら、動かないで。
So she would have better access to finding out information and not be stopped either in asking questions and stuff. So it wouldn't be as like secretive. Well, secretive that she was investigating, but not secretive in terms of her being able to like access information that she wouldn't be able to access elsewhere.
これでは肝心の何を使って作ったかがわかりませんね。
He's so
わからないのか？
excited to see her.
話に加わりたいらしい。
Of course he does.
ね
Look at his
何
little
がわからないって？
face.
ああ、
お食事前ですから。
分かっている。
ずいぶん子供っぽいことを。
He is a big child.
冬場の野菜となると、ナマスの材料は大根か人参といったところですか？
それが海藻を使ったと言っていまして。
海藻ですか？
海藻です。
None of this means
珍
anything
味
to
を
me.
好むということは、変わった海藻を入れることもあるだろう。
That he ate a seaweed that maybe had poison in it without realizing?
その家の厨房を見せてもらうことはできませんか？
Because obviously they wouldn't know like what was poisonous if it's like a new food that nobody's really had before.
これから屋敷に向かうが、お前はあくまでも私のお付きだ。いいな、勝手なことはするなよ。
わかりました。さすがガオシュン様、仕事が早い。それにしても、見たことない武官だな。誰かに似ている気がするが。
I'm trying to think, have I seen him before? But I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe I have, but his face isn't coming to mind.
おい、
勝手に入るな。出て行け。何をしてる。こんな奴らを連れてきたのはお前か。
入ってもよ
Who
ろ
are
しいか？
you?
それとも何か不都合でも？
勝手にしろ。
Obviously not high enough to prevent them, but
旦那様の弟君です。旦那様が昏睡状態になって
he inherited, right?
弟君が屋敷を取り仕切っていまして。
Has he poisoned his brother? Very strange. Or maybe he's just stressed, but I don't know. My initial gut reaction is like he's concocted a way of poisoning his brother to play it off as like accidental, but it was malicious.
ああ、旦那様が好きなやつだ。お気に入りでよく食べておられましたので、毒はないと思いますが。
嘘はついてなさそうだな。
終わったなら早く帰ってくれ。
He's very dismissive.
そうですね。
She's
ご迷
taken
惑をお
some
かけしました。
in her sleeve, right?
なんで簡単に引き下がったの？
引き下がったとは思っていません。
Of course she has.
これ、不思議なんです。だからといって、塩漬けにしたところで、今の時期まで持つものでもありません。
So it's possibly been replaced by
おそら
something
くこの近辺で取れたものではないと思います。
that could be
例えば、
poisonous.
交易で南から仕入れたものだとか。
I think the brother did it to make it look like an accident, but again, that's an assumption. We need evidence.
なぜ神子様もいるのだろ
調べたところ、やはり海藻は南方から持ち込ま
He
れた
just
もので
wants
した
to be near you,
武官の
MAOMAO.
証言では、主人が冬場にその海藻を食べることはなかったとのことでした。
う。同じ海藻なら毒がない。というわけじゃないんです。
It could be poisonous in large doses, but fine in smaller.
世の中には、毒が無毒になることがあるんです。この海藻の場合は、石灰水につけることが必要だったはずです。ここに
So
用意
maybe
したものは
not
石
prepared
灰水
properly?
につけたものと。そうでない
She's
もの
gonna
です。
taste test, isn't she?
何してる。
大丈夫です。うん、多分。
多分ってなんだ。
Probably.
ご安心を。ちゃんとオート剤はここに。
Look at our little scientist go.
はけー。
一夜漬けで無毒化できるかどうか食べて検証するつもりだったのに。
I love this show.
食べる習慣のない地方から取り寄せれば危険性が高いのは当たり前です。
わかりました。
ここにいる者たちは賢い。これ以上言う必要はない。
Somebody did it intentionally. He's like,
結局
stop
犯人
it!
は倒れた役人の弟でした。自分が買ったと白状したそうです。
That's why he was
動
so
機は
anxious.
次男の自分がないがしろにされて長男を邪魔に思ったからだそうです。
That was my gut instinct.
酒場で横に座った客から偶然教わったそうです。
偶然ね
I was right.
え。毒の残っている海藻は食べられなかったな。それ
He's
にして
so
も
sad.
何に使おう。あの干からびた虫から伸びた枯れ葉色のキノコ。おかえりなさいませ。おかえりなさい
Oh
ま
no!
せ。
I replay that moment over and over and over again.
何事ですか？
She smiled at
私
him.
のせいじゃない。
お疲れのようですね。
仕事が溜まってるんだが、
Oh, his head.
意見が違ってしまうのだ。家柄は良いのに40を過ぎて
Laken
再建もせず有名な変人だ。難癖をつけては突撃してきて案件の判を押すのを先延ばしにしてくる。どうも標的にされたらしい。
I have a feeling it's Laken.
よし、忘れよう。思い出してもろくなことにならない。
Forget. Mind delete.
まあ忘れたところでいつもの嫌な予感は当たるのだが。
案件はもう通ったはず
It
で
is
すが、
Laken.
冬に花見は難しい。
どうやら突っかかってくる理由は六召喚に縁のあるマオマを下女にしたことにあるらしい。
そういえば六召喚に昔馴染みがいましてね。
意外な話だ。色事など全く興味ないのかと思っていたが、
いい妓女でしたよ。
Was a
碁
good
と将棋が
courtesan.
得意で将棋では勝てるが碁では負けてばかりだった。
軍師殿を任すとは、それは強かったのでしょう。
I'm a stew for a minute because my brain is cooking up something that Laken is mad at Jinshi for bringing MAOMAO back to the palace is because MAOMAO is his daughter with this courtesan, which is why the brothel is so affectionate with MAOMAO and why she was so close to the brothel is because they knew whose daughter she was. But because they weren't married, she was born out of wedlock and therefore she was given to someone else to raise because her mom wasn't capable of raising her. Because it sounds as if her mom has passed away by using was. So perhaps the brothel decided to give her to the doctor because she would have a better life than being raised inside of the brothel. Maybe it's what her mom wanted before she passed away. She could have died in childbirth. We don't know. It could have been that the doctor delivered MAOMAO and was entrusted to look after MAOMAO because obviously her dad can't raise her, but maybe he helped provide for MAOMAO. But I think Laken's her dad. I think Laken is MAOMAO's dad. And that's why he's pissed off at Jinshi. And that's why he's making Jinshi's life miserable. Because MAOMAO has been brought back here. And the doctor said it's weird how fate works in terms of she would end up in the rear palace. And I was like, yeah, because he was kicked out of the rear palace, but we also know that he's not biologically her dad. So the fact that she's in the palace could be she's where her actual dad is, her biological dad, who she doesn't know. That's her dad. That's her dad. That's her dad. Calling it. Calling it.
あれほど
On it.
面白い女
He
に
had a
は
baby with a concubine.
もう会えないだろうと身請けも考えましたが、世の中うまくいかないものでね。
時に妓女の身請金は利休が一つ立つほどの額になるという。
変わり者の妓女でしてね。芸は売れど身は売らず。それどころか
客を客とも思わない。客に茶を継ぐ時も下
The
船の民に
fucking the
施しを
hair,
与えるよ
the
うな
hair.
尊大な目で見ておりました。背筋にゾクゾクっとくる感覚がたまらないものでして。
And the link to MAOMAO, the chill down the
いつ
spine.
か押し倒してみたいと
Laken's her
思
dad.
っていたものですよ。結局その議場を諦めきれず、仕方なく少々汚い手を使いま
Those
した。
eyes are MAOMAO's
と
eyes.
いうと、
高くて
The hair
手
is
に
her
出せない
mom's
ものは
hair.
安くなれば問題ないわけでして。まあその前にちょっと頼みたいことがあるんですが。
何ですか一体。
そちらに最近入った下女というのが
He's also very nosy and inquisitive and getting in the way of everything, and that's very MAOMAO.
ああ、私の知人に宮廷御用達の彫金細工師がいたんですよ。そいつが先日ぽっくり言ってしまった。秘伝と言える技術を伝えぬまま言ってしまったのが不憫でね。きっと彼の思わせぶりな遺言が何かの手がかりだと思うんです。
He wants MAOMAO to
それ
solve
が
it.
引っかかっていてね。
I guarantee he already knows what it is, but this is just a way to see MAOMAO and maybe confirm his suspicions that she might be his.
その秘伝の技術を知る術がないかと思ったまでです。例えば、頭の回るそちらの下女が調べてくれやしないもの
I don't think
かと。
Jinshi's gonna want MAOMAO anywhere near him because he thinks Laken's a creep and a
と
weirdo.
りあえず話だけでも聞かせてもらえないでしょうか。
Those eyes are Laken's eyes, similar color. Laken's her dad. I don't believe that that's the full story where he's saying I made her undesirable. I think potentially what they could have done is, you know how MAOMAO was talking about the courtesan that she knew that made herself ill to have herself bought out. Whoa, what if that's her mum? Like, what if that was the intention, but it didn't actually work, but MAOMAO thinks that it worked because that's the story that she was told, but she doesn't actually know that it wasn't successful, that maybe in the process of making her mum undesirable, her mum passed away, or maybe her mum got pregnant with MAOMAO and passed away before Laken could buy her out. What if the way of making her undesirable was to impregnate her, was that they had a baby together? He's making it sound really malicious, but I don't think that's the case. I think potentially they were like intimate with one another because she wasn't intimate with anyone else. I think she was intimate with Laken, and the way that he made her undesirable to anyone else and to lower and devalue her price was to impregnate her. And therefore, he would then be able to afford to buy her out. But something has happened that's prevented that, that stopped him from being able to go through with it. So what if the story she's telling back in like episode 3 was actually in connection with her own mum, but she doesn't know that it's in connection with her own mum because she doesn't actually know who her parents are because she wasn't raised by her parents. And obviously people are going to think I'm being absolutely fucking bonkers here because they're like, well, did you not listen to what Laken said? I did, but Laken couldn't outright come out and be like, I have an illegitimate child. He can't because it would be looked at unfavorably. It wasn't uncommon for unmarried men to have illegitimate children, but they didn't brag about it and they didn't really talk about them. So why would he mention it? And also, if it was linked back to MAOMAO and people knew that she was actually illegitimate, it would be really bad for MAOMAO and she wouldn't receive any credit or respect in the court atmosphere, and Jinshi would find it harder to make her a court lady and to allow her to get greater access to things so that she can solve little mysteries and put her analytical mind to work. So, you know, it could be for the protection of MAOMAO, or maybe he isn't sure that MAOMAO is his daughter, but he suspects that MAOMAO could be his daughter. But I think he knows because of the fact that he's given Jinshi such a hard time, that he knows that MAOMAO's his daughter, and that they're talking about how he can afford to buy her out because she had other people vying for her. that it could be that the story that we heard that MAOMAO was telling about the courtesan that made herself undesirable to be bought out by somebody that couldn't afford it so that she could be with the one that she actually loved could be her mom. But we don't hear the other end of that tale. And maybe MAOMAO doesn't know the other end of that tale, which is that it wasn't successful because her mom passed away, but she also doesn't know that that's her mom. Maybe she only hears this like romanticized version of it, but not the actual relevant version. But the whole, it sends whole shivers down my spine, the look that she has and this disdain. And then it cuts to MAOMAO, and then we see the identical green shade of hair, and then the blueness of Laken's eyes is also the blueness of MAOMAO's eyes. And I know people are like, how are you connecting it by colors? It could just be coincidence. It's also genetics, you know, so you inherit genetics from your parents, and anime also does the same thing where they'll show genetic connections between children and their parents by having similar traits. So it's not a wild prospect and it's not an assumption, it is just a theory. But I think Lakin has had a baby with a courtesan in the brothel, which is why he knew what the brothel was and why he was so sort of interested in hearing more about it, and then interested about hearing the servant girl that had been brought from the brothel into Jinshi's household, and why he's so annoyed by it to the point that he's making Jinshi's life a living hell is because MAOMAO's here and he didn't want MAOMAO to be here, either because he worries about the impact it'll have on his reputation, or he doesn't want MAOMAO in the political world because of the dangers that's within it, and that he would rather MAOMAO live outside of the palace and be safe and protected than be here and subject to rumor and gossip and the dangers of court life, that he would rather she stay with the doctor and never know who her actual parents are, because the doctor could provide a better life for her, but also she wouldn't have her reputation thrown into disrepute. Because as far as anyone else knows, MAOMAO is from a legitimate family line, whereas coming from a courtesan and a strategist would be seen as illegitimate. Because whilst it works for the emperor and his concubines, it's because the concubines are basically his de facto wives. The rules that apply to the emperor and his women and their children aren't the same rules that apply to the likes of everybody else. So you wouldn't be free from condemnation if it was found that you were illegitimate, if your parents weren't married, and MAOMAO's reputation would be thrown into question and disrepute if it came out that she was actually the daughter of a strategist, a high-ranking strategist with a concubine from a brothel in the pleasure district. Therefore, it's better for people to think that she comes from the doctor, because he is highly respected and not a lot of people know that he's a eunuch. So therefore, it could just be chalked up to her mom having died, but there would be no questions about her legitimacy because of the doctor's high standing reputation. But that man is her dad. That's her dad. That's her dad. That's her dad. And her mom's a concubine. But what happened to her mom is the question. Honestly, it could be that her mom passed away in childbirth and the doctor delivered MAOMAO and was asked to raise MAOMAO away from the brothel. But obviously the brothel still love MAOMAO because obviously they knew her mom, so they wanted to be involved in her upbringing and her life. So therefore she still has that close connection, especially because the doctor still serves the brothel. Like, he provides medicine and aid and looks after the women there, so MAOMAO also becomes connected with them. But it makes so much sense as to how all these lives are threaded together if Lakin and a concubine from the brothel are MAOMAO's parents. My head is spinning. What the fuck? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this react, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next episode, bye!